Hey guys, welcome back to the homestead. Today's a really cool day because we get to finally harvest some tomatoes off of our planted tomatoes that we have here in the pots behind me. We're also going to do a small garden update. We don't have a whole lot planted, but what we do have planted, we're going to go and take a look at. That includes the tomato row here behind me and some other stuff that we have planted in the pots. But first off, I want to tell you how fun it is and how easy it is to grow Everglades tomatoes, which is one of the varieties that we have growing in the pots behind me. If you have any trouble at all growing tomatoes and you have issues with your soil, heat, those type things, Everglades tomatoes is definitely the one to grow. They like sandy soils. They can grow without being babied, basically. You don't have to fertilize them much or at all if you don't want to. Like I said, they are found grown wild in South Florida, hence the name Everglades tomatoes. They're found grown wild in the Keys as well. I do fertilize them, and it will make for more of a vigorous plant, and you'll get more tomatoes, obviously, if you take care of them a little bit better than just broadcasting seeds out in your soil. But they are drought tolerant, and they'll grow in any type soils. They love the heat. So yeah, they're a very easy, fun tomato to grow, and I'll show you what they look like. So this is what a full-grown Everglades tomato looks like. Everglades tomatoes here on the left and here on the right, the center, they are not Everglades tomatoes. Those are Sungold cherry tomatoes. But you can see them on the vine and how they bunch up on the vine. Some in ripening stage, some not ripe, some fully ripe right there. That's a pretty good shot of all the different stages of the Everglades tomatoes. And you can see, oh, look at that little pest right there. You can see that they are in abundant supply on the bush. They are, like I said before, they are drought tolerant, they're disease tolerant, and they are a super easy to grow tomato. If you have any trouble all growing tomatoes, this is definitely the one to try. They can be invasive, but again, if you live in a cold area where you get lots of frost or obviously snow, they're not going to be an invasive plant. They're not going to be much of a problem. But in South Florida, if you don't contain them, they will reseed themselves. They are a perennial in the southern climate. So that's the size of them. They aren't very large. I'd probably say on an average they're about a ½ inch in size. And let me tell you, the flavor profile on these is tremendous. They're not a very acidic tomato, but they do have a really deep flavor to them. And when you eat them, they just burst into flavor. They're delicious. And for as easy as these are to grow, highly recommend you trying them at least once. I think you'll be really hooked on the flavor of these. But let's get to picking some more of these off so we can throw them in our salad later. And we'll also, I can see back here behind me, we also have some Sungold cherry tomatoes ready as well. We'll pick a couple of those off and throw them in the video so you can see. Okay, we got a great little harvest for a salad. I went ahead and picked a couple Sungold that were ready as well, so you can see the size comparison to a normal cherry tomato. These were ready from seed to harvest in about 55, 58 days. I did pull a couple off here and there to munch on as I'm working in the garden. They're a real fun snack to have if you're out there working on a hot day. Just pluck one off and pop it in your mouth. They're delicious. So a couple of them didn't survive the initial setting on when they came on the bush, but this is the biggest and the first quote real harvest that we had off these this year. And yeah, you can see inside the bowl, not bad. They're beautiful little tomatoes. All right, so you can see this is a Sungold cherry tomato and this is the Everglades tomato. Quite a size difference. And just to touch briefly on the Sungold cherry tomato, this tomato is by far the best cherry tomato that we have grown to date. We've tried a handful of different cherry tomatoes in the past, and they're good. Most of them are good, but this Sungold it's just off the hook. It is really acidic, the flavor just pops like crazy. It's juicy. It's just a perfect size. We love it. It'll absolutely be a cherry tomato that we grow just about every year. You can see the inside of it. It's a very pretty tomato, and oh my goodness, it's the best. You guys will love this. If you haven't already tried growing or tasting this cherry tomato, you got to do it. All right, so now I'm going to bring you to the rest of the stuff that we have growing just for a little update. All right, we'll start over here from the right and go left. On the table, we have our peppers. This is the pepperoncinis. As you can see here, we have one that is almost ready to pull. This plant is absolutely loaded with buds, doing really well. A couple more peppers. They're saying these are pepperoncinis as well. The back row is all the potted citrus that we have. Those are doing fairly well. Again, there's one that got just torn up by grasshoppers. It's doing okay. It's not thriving, but we're gonna go ahead and winterize these. You bring them in when it gets cold or any type of frost that comes to us. We're gonna put on the either under the barn or on the back deck just to kind of protect them. And in the springtime, we'll go ahead and get these in the ground or plant them in a bigger pot. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with the citrus yet. This here is a monster bell, and you can see again we have really nice peppers growing here. They're loaded, or it's loaded with peppers and buds. Keeping my fingers crossed that we can get a nice little harvest before it gets cold. And I'm gonna overwinter these peppers. I'm gonna also bring them in when any type of frost comes, and hopefully we'll be able to overwinter those. And this is eggplant. Again, with eggplant, we have some getting ready to pop here. We got blooms everywhere. They're doing really, really good in the pot. Actually, a little bit better than I thought they were gonna do in a pot. Oh, and I'm bringing in here close. Got a really cool bug here. You guys see that? That's an assassin bug. Those are good guys. Don't kill those guys. If you guys see those on your plant, that is not a bad bug. That is a nymph assassin bug. Leave them alone, friends of the garden. All right, look at that beautiful bounty we got. Very blessed to have this this produce that we grew in our own backyard in pots, nevertheless. So if you guys don't have a garden area or an area big enough to put a garden in, please don't be shy about putting stuff in pots. This is the second handful we've gotten in this pot so far, and you can see the blooms are just stacked up. So we will be getting even more than this. So don't be shy if you don't have an area to garden in. Plant some peppers in pots and, try it out. All right, tomato row is doing really good. Most of these plants are, I'm gonna say 4.5 foot tall. They come up to about my chin. And these are also just loaded to the max. You can see these here. Let me see if I can get a better shot. You can see those there. I mean, they're all just loaded like crazy, which makes me very happy because fall tomatoes are really hard to grow. And it seems as though so far we have been successful to this point. You can get in there since another one just absolutely loaded with tomatoes. Now these are determinate tomatoes. I would say about 85–90% of the tomatoes we have on this row are determinate. And I didn't mention before, the Everglades tomatoes, that is an indeterminate tomato. So it will grow crazy if you let it. You can trellis it. It'll just grow wild. These are determinate, which will only get a certain height, and bloom sets at once and fruit sets hopefully at once. It's not always the case, as you can see. Obviously that little guy there and that little guy there aren't going to set the same as this little guy. So I don't know why that happens. I'm not an expert gardener. So I don't know why some on the determinate side set and some don't. Again, you can see just every plant is just absolutely loaded. We are just tickled to death at the success we've had so far on this one. Again, we haven't put anything in the freezer yet or harvested these tomatoes, so anything can happen between now and I'm gonna guess 20 to 30 more days before we start pulling these off of the plants. So we're gonna keep our fingers crossed. Now this one here, we've never grown before. This is a yellow pear tomato. And I'll bring it in a little bit closer. You can see the pear shape from that. It's a very slow growing plant and very slow to set fruit. And I'm not very hopeful on this that we're gonna get anything before our frost date, but we're keeping good faith that we will. Again, this is another, we have 2 of these growing. And this was an accident. Actually, I didn't know that this plant here on the end was a pear tomato. I thought I was planting another cherry tomato, but that's okay. No big deal. All right, my daughter loves sunflowers, so these are the ones we planted from seed a few months back. We have this pot full of them, and we also have our address sign garden up front. We have some dwarf sunflowers in that as well. They're beautiful. The bees love these little guys in the morning. And here is a not so successful story. There was some cauliflower we planted in there and did not make it. Here are a few cauliflower that did make it. So some cauliflower made it and some did not. And that's just the way it goes. And again, babies here are all doing okay. Get around to the other side. They're doing okay, not fantastic. I wish they would do a little bit better. I don't think I'm pushing them as hard as I should be. With this heat is just slowing everything down to a crawl. And these are onions, our onion starts. They're actually doing really well. And just got another tray on the bottom. I'm trying to keep out of the heat. But that's it for the garden. Okay guys, that's it for this garden update. I appreciate you all watching. And as soon as as soon as the weather starts cooling off, well enough where I can plant in the ground and kind of feel safe that the plants won't get stressed out and we'll lose them, I'll start videoing that process as well. But right now it's just too darn hot, and I don't want to stress out the plants. I want to stress out the plants as little as possible. Planting new starts in the ground is already stressful enough on them, and then adding 85-degree heat on top of a new plant start when they like cool weather isn't really productive or good for the plant. So as soon as we start getting a few more degrees and temperature drops, we'll start that process and we'll bring it to you. So until then, you guys take care, and we'll see you later on Kyle Family Homestead.